All right, everyone. You may have seen the news, link in the description, archived, of course, with regards to Chicago and ice-free zones. Yes, indeed. Well, in Portland, Trump is apparently no longer commander-in-chief. He's not allowed to send in the troops, even though the judge basically laid out a reason why deploying the troops would actually be acceptable. Just didn't acknowledge it and just said, well, yeah, you can deploy the troops if the state is not capable of carrying out federal law. But the fact that the state is ignoring federal law entirely, that's not really a reason. There's nothing wrong here. In Chicago, you now have the deployment of ice-free zones. That is, areas in which individuals will not work with federal law enforcement in any way, shape, or form. And the city is literally telling people who are illegally in the goddamn country, breaking federal law simply by physically being here, and telling them, don't worry, nobody's going to know your whereabouts. We're not going to cooperate with them at all. And if you're in one of these safe zones, you're safe. It's perfectly fine. We're not going to allow them to do their job. We're not actually going to enforce immigration law. Now, this is a juxtaposition from the last administration. Under the Biden administration, you had the federal government uninterested in policing the border. You had a federal government uninterested in deporting people. You had a federal government uninterested in immigration law as it was duly incepted by Congress decades before. It had nothing to do with the Trump administration. And by the way, it chuffs me a little bit when people are saying, well, Donald Trump is taking the law into his own hands. No, he's doing his literal job, which is to help enforce federal immigration law. It was incepted by Congress, like some of these laws are from the 1980s and shit. Had nothing to do with Donald Trump. Dude, he was a spring chicken when some of these laws came in. Under Biden, states, therefore, tried to set up barriers. They tried to enforce the border. Biden told them, no, you're not allowed to do that. There's federal supremacy. And the courts agreed with him by and large. Now, under Donald Trump, he's trying to actually enforce border law as duly enforced by Congress over the course of decades. What are the courts telling him? No, no, now it's a states' rights issue. You don't have the ability to actually deport people in a state unless it's along the border. Then it's okay. If you're down in Texas or Southern California or something, it's legal, but you're not allowed to send in agents to deport people or, help local law enforcement in a place like Chicago. All of a sudden, and this is a takeoff, by the way, from the immigration debate that has been going on for years now. You'll remember when DeSantis was flying people to Martha's Vineyard and all the white NIMBYist upper middle class liberals said, oh my God, brown people, not here. You got to go to the mainland. Or they were sending them to New York. They sent them to Chicago and places like that. They're busing people, flying people in. You'll remember that was a really, really big problem at the time. And the northern cities, like Chicago, like New York, they began to bitch and complain, leading to Joe Biden actually having the FBI raid the home of Eric Adams. I note that that was a funny thing, a little bit of inner liberal fighting, so to speak. All of a sudden, now the courts weigh in and say you're not allowed to actually enforce the law. Well, they're already here. Yeah, they're breaking the law every second that they are here, but you're not allowed to do anything about it. The courts can't stop doing this. Ice-free zones, what are you talking about? The city of Chicago, the government there, is more interested in preserving the ability of people to be illegally in the country than it is about its own residents. When has the city of Chicago tackled its gun crime problem, for example? Like actual gun crime, like gang members shooting at one another and occasionally hitting stray targets. They don't do anything about it. What about all the property crime in Chicago? They don't care about that either. So if you're in Chicago, you might get shot, you might have your car broken into, maybe your home is broken into, maybe your kids are dragged away by Tren de Agua members and forced into sex slavery or something. Government of Chicago does not care, but it cares a very, very great deal about Donald Trump being able to actually send in the troops, which is his legal right under the Constitution as commander-in-chief. This is settled science. There's no argument to even be had here as regards to the legality of what Donald Trump is doing. Other courts have sided with him and said it's perfectly okay. These particular courts are saying he's not allowed to do anything. He can't go into Poland, but he can somehow go into Chicago. But then when he goes into Chicago, all of a sudden there are ice-free zones where they won't allow federal forces to actually operate and stage. What sense does this make? Literally none. It makes no sense. I mean, they're trying to kneecap his ability to respond to what is effectively a major crisis. The border is a major crisis. This is one of the reasons for what we saw in the last election, because it looked like the Democrats didn't give a shit about the border. And immigration was one of the front burner issues, along with the economy, inflation, things like that, and war and so forth. It was one of the front burner issues. This wasn't a back burner issue. This was at the probably at the center of the forefront because it also comes attendant with the aspect of crime in general. If you're in the country illegally, you're committing a crime all the time. Cities won't do anything about it. They're either unwilling or incapable. So Trump said, okay, well, I'll help you. I'll send in some dudes and, we can handle the problem. But then all of them say, no, you're not allowed to do that. It exceeds your 10th Amendment authority. Our states have supremacy. That is true. I'm a 10th Amendment absolutist myself. But if you are not willing or able to do a job that is incepted as part of your duties as a state, then it's perfectly fine, in my opinion, if some other group comes in and does it for you. If you want to sit there in your diaper and poo-poo pee-pee and wail and whine about Orange Man being fat and bad and evil and stuff like that, that's perfectly fine by me. But you don't have the right to condemn your own citizens to constant suffering because you're not willing to act. And that's what's happening. It's happening in Chicago. It's happening, well, to a lesser extent, I'd say in New York. They've, at least currently, and they won't soon, but currently they've got reasonably sane leadership, I suppose. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Chicago, Seattle, all of these other cities, many of them, they are overrun by crime and drug use and illegals and things like that. If the states and the municipalities aren't capable or aren't willing to do something about this, why wouldn't it make sense to send in some other group that's capable of doing it? Now, I'm not a fan of having, U.S. troops on U.S. soil policing the streets myself. I'm not a fan of it at all. It never should have been necessary. That's the whole point, though. It never should have gotten to the point where it was necessary. We could have stopped this years ago. The Biden administration wasn't interested in doing so. And so for all of Trump's tamping down in his first term, Biden really just broke all the toys and left us in a heap of ashes more than anything else. That's basically what happened. Now Trump has, again, the thankless task of trying to nail things together. It's going to take a lot of effort. I wish him well. That's about all. Peace out.